take me through the emotions you had when you found out in November. I mean, because you had your positive panel vote in July, and then there was kind of that arduous waiting period there. But take me a little bit through the emotions you felt in November when you finally got the word. You know, did you cheer? You know, were there high fives all around?
Oh, yeah. It was an extremely exciting time. You know, it's funny when you're going along this journey. There are milestones along the way, and when you hit those milestones, they couldn't be higher. And then there's also some low points along the way where things just don't look good. It looks like the sun's not going to come up tomorrow. And so you ride through a lot of those emotions along the way. And when you get to the actual point of approval, to some extent, there's been so many of those highs and lows along the way, I suppose there's a certain amount of emotion that finally this has happened. You know, interestingly enough, you know, we were thinking that we were going to be the ones to tell the world, but FDA decided to announce it to the world at the same time that they told us. So they actually scooped us. We had some people, did you know it got approved? I said, really? They were kind of proud of it too, apparently. So
they took a lot of their lives too, I would guess. But I mean, like I'm just imagining, like, you know, screaming high fives and, you know, people throwing stuff up in the air. I mean, was there a party, or was it?
Yeah, no, it was. You know, I walked back to the area where a lot of the design work had taken place, our transcatheter heart valve group, and had a chance to talk with some of our leaders that had been through this whole journey. And we reminisced about, you know, the years before and all the journey, if you will, along the way. And that was probably the most satisfying, or just going through and reminiscing with all those that lived the highs and lows along the way, and lived all the twists and turns when we were sure it was going to happen sooner, and then we wondered whether it would happen at all. And that's the most rewarding part, is the struggle is, you know, is all part of what makes the arrival so special.
So maybe we could go back to I guess one of those low moments. That would be back in 2005 when you had to stop the pivotal trial there. And, you know, that must have been that's sort of a fish or cut bait moment, I would presume. Maybe you could take me through how you worked through that calculus. I mean, I would assume that was a moment where it was like, are we really going to keep doing this, or is this worth the effort?
Yeah, so just to provide the audience with a little bit of perspective, the first case done like this was done in 2002. And Alain Cribier, who was a spectacular cardiologist in Paris, really had the bulk of the early experience, and his experience was with the sickest of the sick patients, really, that didn't have a prospect to live much more than a matter of weeks or months. And he had quite a successful experience with this, and you know, we did our engineering on it and made some improvements. We were fortunate enough to have that whole team from PVT come with us and hold our hand and help us along the way. And when we got to 2005, we finally convinced the FDA that we need to bring this to the United States, and they didn't give us a pivotal trial. They said you can do a feasibility trial. So you can go to 3 hospitals and you can do a handful of cases. I think it was less than 50 cases at the time. And we started down that path, and it didn't go well. I think there was maybe 5 cases done at Beaumont Hospital, the first hospital we went to, and out of those, I think maybe 3 were really successful. And New York started up without success as well. And we knew at that time that we needed to stop. It looked like at that time it just was apparent that whatever the success was that was happening in France was just not transferring over to the United States. And so we just said, you know, this is not it. And you know, our clinicians were obviously, they went from being so high because they were so excited about doing this new procedure, and not to be able to give these patients a successful outcome was a huge downer for them as well. So it wasn't a wonderful time back then. Just to build on it though, at the same time, you know, we have such bright engineers and working with great partners. They were working with a cardiologist in Vancouver by the name of John Webb, and they had simultaneously developed a different way of delivering this heart valve, so-called retrograde as opposed to antegrade. So instead of coming up the venous side and putting a hole in the septum and doing a loop through the mitral valve, and a pretty complex procedure, which Professor Cribier was doing, he decided that he could get this device, which is a pretty large device, through the femoral artery and then up the aorta and deliver it the way it's being delivered today. And he had success doing a number of these cases. And so what we decided to do was to try to see if we couldn't come back into the U.S. with a new feasibility study and come with a different approach. And that's what we ended up doing.
I mean, but was it a Fisher cut bait moment, or was it just, we got to keep going here, we can't stop now?
Oh, you know, we had such high expectations, such high hopes. We saw what this did for patients, and we just couldn't accept that this would be the end. It was depressing, and I'm sure we had our dark moments, but I don't know that any of us that were really deeply involved ever said, no, this is it, we're stopping. I think we were determined that we were going to find a way.